of America could actually be listening in. And that's part of what I want to ask everyone, and thank you all so very much for your work. Dr. Burgess already brought up the fact that this committee has looked at the issue of vaccine hesitancy and vaccine confidence, and a recent poll showed that as few as 50% of people in the United States are committing to receiving one of your vaccines, with another quarter wavering. And so I continue to be really concerned about what we all are doing relative to vaccine hesitancy. And so I'm really curious what your specific company's approaches are, whether it's how you market it, how you communicate it, how you educate the doctors and the public health professionals about the efficacy and safety of your vaccine, because as you can see, there's been a lot of questions about that. And I'll start with my friend and fellow, the chair of the CSIS Commission, Dr. Gerberding. If you could share with us what Merck is doing. I know you talked about truth-telling and so forth, but what is it that the companies are doing specifically to help educate the American people? And I'd love to hear from everyone. Dr. Gerberding?
Thank you, and thank you for mentioning the Commission. We really appreciate your support in that regard and in all of your efforts on behalf of our health security. You know, it's a long answer, and perhaps I should bring some of this back to you for the record, but the short answer is that it really does have to do with grassroots as much as it does top-down, and that means getting out in the communities. For example, dealing with the health disparities of COVID means we go to the front line. We're actually supporting through various local NGOs the opportunities to bring information to people, to encourage them to seek care, to try to catch up with the misvaccinations that have occurred in the consequence of the pandemic so far, where we're now at risk for a measles pandemic because of under-immunization. So it's the grassroots on the ground, supporting the medical providers and supporting community leaders on their terms, bringing them information. As Chief Patient Officer, I have roundtables with various patient advocacy groups, just listening to what they know, what their concerns are, and how can we broker better information exchange? And then, of course, social media is also a big help.
Okay, thank you. And if there are other things, Dr. Pangalis, anything with AstraZeneca, anything different?
I would just add to, I think the other piece that we need to be doing is being incredibly transparent about the data that we're generating with the vaccine and the studies that we're running. We'll be following up our patients for 2 years post-vaccination, making sure that data is visible for all the different ethnic diversities in our trial population, different age groups. I think will give more confidence to the population at large that the vaccines are safe as well as effective.
Thank you. Dr. Dwoji?
Yes, I think the efforts need to start now in terms of education and outreach. I mean, of course, we have to develop a safe and efficacious vaccine and be confident that the data that we're presenting are shared in an understandable and digestible way so that people feel comfortable in accepting vaccination. But I do think that the communities that are disproportionately affected might require more engagement, and that is a long process that really needs to start now, such that they could even consider participating in clinical trials. I think that diverse participation also gives credibility to the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine and forms the foundation for the work that has to come after that.
Thank you. Dr. Hogue, want to make sure everyone is able to say what your company is doing.
So I would echo the comments about transparency of the data we're working to generate. We need to create information that allows trusted advisors to make these recommendations to patients. And for us, our focus right now is making sure that we're enrolling populations in our phase 3 study that are representative of the diversity of America, representative of the burden of disease. And we're partnering with a number of different groups nationally, the National Black Church, but also the NIH and others, try and outreach to those communities to leverage those trusted advisors to try and communicate with those populations.
Thank you. Mr. Young, Pfizer.
Thank you for your question. It's a critical question. I would endorse the comments that my fellow panelists have made. I would just add that for Pfizer, data transparency is really important. One of the commitments that we made early on in this pandemic was to publish transparently our clinical data as we generate it, which we've sought to do. And we think that will continue to be important. We, like some of our the other companies here, are also looking to ensure that our pivotal study is representative of the burden of disease for COVID-19. So recruitment of minorities, of women, of older patients into this study is going to be really important. And that's critical so that when that trial completes and when we follow up those patients, that physicians, that the scientific community, and then I think to other comments that were made, the grassroots of America can be confident that a vaccine that is approved is going to be safe and effective for patients.
Thank you all very much. I would just remind you all, most of us are not physicians or in the medical community, and so the extent that you can educate us all in the best language possible is most appreciated. Thank you all for your work and good luck. I yield back.
Gentlelady, and Chair now recognizes Mr. Peters for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for being here. I